Welcome to Construction One-on-One with Ravi Bhatia. We've got Pierce Reynoldson. Pierce, known you now for a while. You're leading technology and innovation at Entech Engineering. You're also on the leadership committee at Contech Alliance. And you've been in the industry 20 years. What lessons perhaps we could learn from you?
I think my career is kind of marked by graduating into two recessions. Kind of a mini recession in 2003, which meant that after I graduated, I was basically changing jobs every 6 months. I worked in architecture for the 2 years that before I started grad school. Yale was very important to me. I think it taught me a lot about doing research, about writing in particular. I took a lot of research classes there, a lot of professional practice. It's where I met who would later become my first boss coming out of school, John Tachi Sr. It's where I met someone who's been an important mentor for me, Phil Bernstein, who teaches a professional practice program there. It's important to point out that from 2003 to 2008, everywhere I worked, everyone was going to the Middle East. They're going to Abu Dhabi and Dubai.
I had visited Dubai at that time. It was like they were building the equivalent of a city every few months. It was just coming up vertically. And it was an exciting place to be.
Most of the speculative kind of competition projects I worked on in architecture had something to do with the Middle East. I worked on a fit out for the Mall of the Emirates, which is, to my knowledge, was the first mall to have a ski slope inside of it in a desert, interestingly enough. Then I worked on all these kind of speculative skyscrapers for Pelly Clark Pelly. So when the time came, it's like, I'm going to go to Dubai. I was supposed to fly out to start looking for an apartment in Dubai. I had an offer in hand. And then I got an email from the company that I had the offer from. All projects are on hold indefinitely. My wife and I flew to Istanbul. We were supposed to part ways. I was going to go look for apartments in Dubai. And instead, we decided to stay. So then I worked for about a year in Istanbul, started looking for jobs in the US. I'm still very much thinking like, I want to be an architect. But the offers coming in just weren't that great. I remembered the only contractor to come and speak at Yale while I was there, which was John Tachi Sr. They were talking about virtual design and construction, building information modeling, integrated project delivery, computer-aided facilities management. All these things were really hot and exciting at the time. I think still are hot and exciting, but they were really doing it. The whole time I was in virtual design and construction, I was in their virtual design construction group, VDC. I kept thinking like, I'm going to go back to architecture. I'm going to gain all these skills. I kept thinking like, I'm going to become like a super architect, supercharged with all this innovation. And then an interesting thing happened. Just the opportunities kept coming. Within a year, I was the first one in my class to go back to Yale to teach and to be on their faculty. And that began 9 years of teaching at Yale, teaching building information. BIM is starting to take off. You have a lot of these firms who want to know how to go from CAD to BIM. We were doing a lot of consulting on digital transformation. Architects, engineers, kind of showing them how to set up, how to execute on a Revit-based project. We consulted for Harvard, put together the first BIM roadmap, Tufts University. We did some asset turnover standards for Boston College. I got to work on this massive project, this $1.5 billion development called Alexandria Center at Kendall Square.
At that time, you were working for a contractor. So in the back of your head, you were like, okay, I'm in construction, I'm working for a contractor. At that point, did it occur to you that, maybe I'm not just an architect, I'm going to be doing something different?
I'd say about 2 to 3 years in. At first, you get lured away by the opportunities, and then after a little bit, you get lured away by having a career path that you can see. I could map out what my career was going to be. Whereas in architecture, I think, this isn't a knock against architecture careers, but I think a lot of the time it felt like you just sort of pay your dues forever, and then you kind of either slowly work your way up to a firm.
You're riding that wave of technology as it's happening in real time. So you're almost like inventing it, right? Because there was no book on it.
Because people didn't know what the workflows were. And my philosophy has always been people, process, technology in that order. Just because you have Revit doesn't mean you can do a Revit project. Just because you have a laser scanner doesn't mean you can now put a point cloud in a model. And it doesn't mean you necessarily know how to do it as an architect and share it with your engineers, your owner, your contractor. So we spent a lot of time literally on a whiteboard, just mapping out workflow diagrams, trying to figure out how things would come together contractually. The thing that attracted me to architecture was the design of the buildings, of spaces. And then the thing that was attracting me to VDC was the design of these processes. And kind of like the design in architecture, you sketched it out. You made sketches of it. You iterated through, really figured out what it was. And I liked it. It was also kind of dealing with organization. Like, okay, so you have Revit, this is how you do it on a project. Now, how do you do it as an organization? How do you do it with other organizations? I found a richness in VDC that I wasn't expecting.
I had the pleasure of attending one of your lectures at Columbia University recently. You teach a course there in entrepreneurship for engineers. How did you come across teaching that, and what is that course about? Because I thought it was fascinating.
Their big project is they develop a mock startup. They do individual pitches, they form teams of about 3 people, and then they develop a startup. It all culminates in a pitch presentation that they do at the end. And then along the way, they get a couple of lectures from me, I think about 2 or 3 lectures from me that tell them about the industry, challenges, opportunities, technological trends and things like that. And then most of it is lectures from various construction technology founders. A lot of folks who are in the Contech Alliance.
It's got to be a real rewarding thing for your students that as they're understanding the process of innovation and entrepreneurship, which kind of go together, and now you've got people that are actually doing it. How is construction a high-tech industry, and how should people prepare to succeed in the construction industry of tomorrow?
In the 21st century, every business is a technology business. I think, especially with what feels like an increasingly rapid development of technology, you also can't just rest on technology from 10 years ago. The technology is changing fast. I think the construction industry has been slow to adapt to that because of our margins, because of liability, for all kinds of reasons. I don't like to think that we're just conservative. There's a lot of external factors that make us kind of more conservative, but it is important to stay ahead. I think there's a business advantage and a clear business argument for staying on top of things. It's tough being on the bleeding edge, but you get a big head start. And I think there's a tendency for us as an industry to kind of wait and see.
Where do you see the greatest opportunities for innovation?
I think there's still a lot of low-hanging fruit that has not been picked by the industry at large. We haven't really fully adopted the cloud. Like a lot of the companies that I see, they haven't really fully, like they're still kind of using cloud as like an FTP site and not necessarily as a collaborative shared platform. I think a lot of firms are still struggling to catch up with structured data. You know, there was this big data was the thing for a decade, and then AI came along and we were like, okay, AI is going to do big data for us now. But the fact of the matter is you need structured data to do AI effectively. The opportunities are there. The knowledge of how to do it is there. Like, so I think we just need to kind of get a bit smarter about that. I said earlier that every business is a technology business. I would also say every technology play is a people play. If you're not thinking about how you have to adjust your organization to adopt the technology, you're not going to adopt. If you're not thinking about how you train people and adjust your people to adopt the technology, you're not going to adopt by osmosis. You don't just sort of like install the software and then walk away. You have to really think about how it gets implemented.
That's a fascinating point, and I think it's an entree into something really big. How do you approach the subject of communication and leadership?
People skills are more critical than ever. AI makes people skills more important than it was before.
Kind of weird, right? If you think about it.
I mean, because AI is not a very good person. It's not good at being a person. And I don't know that it ever will be. I'm really interested in is that the students speak up and they participate. I'm always very emphatic about you need to be opportunistic about this class. These guest lecturers, these founders and investors that are coming in, they're not just here to give you a lecture and leave. You should be approaching them, making an impression on them.
One of the big challenges is that when you get out there in the business world, and whether you're working for a contractor or a design firm or starting your own company, communication is going to be at the forefront of all of it.
My argument has always been at Entech, because we are a services company, is that our product is people. It's having impressive people that you want to work with on a project. And so we're really trying to kind of elevate people as much as possible. So with our younger staff, we have a weekly meeting where people do presentations, short presentations, like we have an industry topic. It's just talk about a headline you saw, talk about a new product that you saw, talk about something you're curious about, and then people will kind of ask that person questions. We have an open topic, but it's to get people speaking, like planning out a presentation, speaking, engaging with the group. It's important for me because we're a hybrid team, that people kind of learn about each other, and it's not just a name and an email, that you actually kind of can identify who people are.
What is your role at Contech, and how do you see Contech Alliance play an increasingly important role in the industry?
I'd say I have two roles. I mean, one as a executive in kind of the technology innovation space. I'm here to provide a bit of that perspective. Two, as an academic, I'm here to help us build bridges with academia, with younger professionals and students, people coming out of school, people maybe still in school. I think New York, I've heard this from multiple people, is just a hub of technology. It also happens to be a hub of construction, AEC technology as well. We had a lecturer in my class say, New York is a really interesting opportunity because you can just kind of go out to different events for a month and you can meet your co-founder, your CFO, the whole team.
It's all here.
Yeah, it's all here, and we're all just very well networked. We're not kind of sitting at home waiting for people to call us.
What does the future look like for you? What would you like to do that you haven't already done?
I'd like to do more research in terms of kind of white papers, academic papers, things like that. I've done a bit of writing, and I kind of want to continue publishing. I'm also really excited about Contech Alliance in terms of, I know that they're very interested in putting out more standards, kind of these resources for the industry. So that's one reason I'm kind of excited about being involved in that. I want to explore more of the data and AI side of things, particularly as a business. I mean, obviously I play with the tools like we all do, but I'm very interested in seeing what we can offer as a services business.
Pierce, it has been really great having you. Would love to have you back at some point to see how your journey is progressing in academia, with Contech Alliance, in the industry. What other message would you have for our viewers?
It's always people and process before technology. It's always about the organization, whether you're teaching a class, whether you're trying to make something happen within your own firm. If you can't figure out the process part of that and how to get people to actually do it, it's going to fail. Innovation is what happens when people actually use the technology. You can't have it without the people.